We always start, or at least I always start the budget process with certain goals in mind. This year, one of the first things we want to do is maintain the existing level of municipal services. We wanted to keep providing the highest level of public safety services to our community. We wanted to reduce the impact of the increased cost for services on our residents. And lastly, we wanted to make sure that we met the financial requirements to prepare the town for future needs. And there's so many things going to be happening, hopefully, over the next couple of years. If we don't be good stewards of our financial resources, it's going to cost us a lot more money and prevent us potentially from doing things that would be very beneficial for the town. Starting with revenue, some of the items that have impacted us. This one a little bit positive, the governor's budget, and also I think the finance committee from the House has also forwarded an increase to the town of Enfield of $525,786 compared to the current year's budget. The majority of that increase is coming in the form of the ECS grant that funds the schools. You may not think of this as a revenue factor going forward, but Storm Alfred, which we experienced there at the end of October of 2011, but it has some long-lasting impacts. First off, the cleanup from Storm Alfred has impacted our undesignated fund balance by $1.45 million. And if everything goes right, that's our share of the cleanup, with the total cleanup costs being in the neighborhood of $5.5 million. What this does is, and there'll be a slide a little bit later on that'll explain this maybe a little bit better, but in dropping that 1.45, it puts us in jeopardy of being under the 10% threshold for undesignated fund. And one of the commitments that we have, being good stewards of the financial resources of the town, is we try to keep our undesignated fund balance at 10% of the total budget. So in the current year, where we're, I think, 113 million, 10% of that would be around 11 million or so. And with the depletion of 1.45 going to the storm cleanup, we're going to be underneath that. In fact, I have a slide again later on that will explain that a little bit more. But because of this, it has forced us in the upcoming budget to reduce the balancing amount that we generally take from the general fund undesignated fund balance for the upcoming year. Just to do is balance the budget and going a little bit higher on our expenditure side than what we're going to be doing in the upcoming year. This current year, we have undesignated fund balance usage for the budget of $2.8 million. So right off the top, we reduced our revenue by $1.2 million. Of course, there are things on the expenditure side that's going to affect the budget. To the positive, our debt service costs this one year is going down by $800,000. Next year, that pops back up. By 2017, we have a significant reduction because of the retirement of a lot of debt, and that's kind of our strategy going forward. Also, with the debt servicing that we're looking at for like roads 2010, and also if the referendum on the high school consolidation is successful, that's the time frame we'd be looking to go into long-term debt. We have a decrease starting mid-November in the cost of our municipal solid waste disposal. Council adopted a resolution that allowed us to sign an agreement with a new disposal company, and it drops our costs from $69 a ton down to $58.75. Also, in changing our vendors on the recycling side, we're going from approximately $5 a ton of recycling up to $22.50. So that's going to fit in on the revenue side of around $1,000 for the upcoming year in terms of new revenue. And then thereafter, each year we're looking probably in the neighborhood of $80,000 to $90,000 in revenue from the municipal solid waste, from the recycling. And on the municipal solid waste, we're probably looking at a savings of around $200,000 a year after the first year. We do have an increase, as we do every year for the most part, in the health insurance costs. That is estimated in the budgets that's been presented to council at a 6% increase. In talking with our insurance consultants, that number is coming down. So I put up here, it's going to fall ultimately somewhere between 3 and 6%. And unfortunately, our workers' compensation costs are increasing for the upcoming year by 15%. And for a spreadsheet, or actually a graph for our department directors, and looking at what our costs and workers' comp and the way it's going, in a 4-year period, we are going to have doubled our premiums for workers' comp. So that's why the town has made a huge commitment over the last 2 years, which council will see as part of the budget presentations later on, to try to turn that trend back downward and get that cost under control. And you know, on the computer, this looks a lot better than what it does on the big screen. But, and it also looks a lot better than the handouts. I apologize for that. I might myself with this, and it looked so good on this. A graph that shows revenues versus expenditures going back to 2007. And what you need to take away, starting back in 2007, our revenues were above what our expenditures were. But as we start going up at actual, at the end of the year, this is what each year the budget that was adopted by council looked like. We started to spread out what revenue versus expenditures were. We did come together in 2009 starting that, but then we started the downward trend, which a number of council members were here for that. We started reducing our costs, and finally, you know, we're starting to go back, and we're trying to also minimize that spread between revenues and expenditures. Again, it looks a lot better on the screen. General fund revenue. In this budget, the total revenues are $115,608,244. 68% of that is coming from our tax system, with 29% being intergovernmental. So that's primarily the money that we're getting from the state of Connecticut, ECS, and the pilots, and the different programs that the state has for funding the town of Enfield. 2% come from other. Those are the fees, the licenses, use of money, interest off of our investments. And then, as you see here, fund balance usage is only 1%. Last year, that number was 2%, so you can see that we are reducing the reliance on the fund balance this year over last year. And that's, again, that $1.2 million reduction. Intergovernmental revenues, just a kind of quick overview. You can see there in 2008, 2009, the state was giving a lot more money to the town of Enfield. And then when we hit into the recession, you can see the downward trend starting to go back up a little bit, although there may be some skepticism in some of the revenue projections that the state has given us, but we're hoping by the time we get into deliberations with council in May, we'll have a better understanding of what their collection numbers look like. That's something to keep in mind, that we may be adjusting some revenues downward based upon what happens in the month of April. Expenditure side, again, the budget balances. So in total, we're spending $115,060,244, and it's kind of in the town's budget of $52,466,888, and the Board of Education's $63,141,356. And kind of breaking that down by the major cost centers within the general fund. Of course, we have the Board of Education we showed you on the earlier slide, but again, it's kind of hard to read here. Our biggest usage is general government, and that's the council's budget, the town manager's budget, finance, all the transfers, debt retirement, the outside agencies. They're kind of lumped together in general government. The next biggest expenditure is public works at almost 16, or a little over $16.5 million. Then the public safety, which in this case is police and communications, at over $12 million. And then we also have, of course, the library and development services. We have other funds, EMS, water pollution control, social services, and information technology. You can see that all are experiencing, except for WPC, a significant, what I would consider a significant increase in funding, which we'll, of course, talk about during our deliberations and budget presentations. In the capital projects, and right now I'm supposed to be over at Town Hall at a planning and zoning meeting presenting this so I can officially present it to council. So I'll be there after we're done here. You'll find within that capital projects list, replacement for police cruisers, a plan for the purchase of 4 large trucks for public works, and that's going to be a mix between and large. Oh, there it goes. I have to hold it in the right place here. Of course, our committee, rate. Yeah. Yes, that's on the refarming side, but also it goes, well, it's two items. It's the radio system lease payments, and then the equipment purchase, the actual portable mobile radios that we have to do. And the radio system lease payments, $598,000, I believe, and the purchase of the radios are $525,000. So there's $1 million in capital money just tied up in a federally mandated program that we have to narrowband our radio system. We have over $900,000 committed for road construction and maintenance. A portion of that $500,000 is for the roads 2010. Another $439, I think, is for other roads. So we're trying to get those roads that are not part of roads 2010, either overlays or full reconstructions. And then we also have money put in there for school and town facility improvements. I throw this slide in here to show the history of the mill rate. And you can see from 2000 up to 2007 or so, we were kind of bouncing around in terms of going up, going down a little bit. But starting in 2008, you can see that we had frozen our mill rate at $23.88. In the budget that I'm presenting, we are requesting an increase of a mill rate, not as dramatic as what that shows. Of course, you may be familiar that we went through the revaluation process, and so that adjusted the actual mill rate up a little higher because we had a decrease in the total grand list. And if you go back to 2007, 2008, that was the year that we also had an adjustment of a reevaluation, but because the grand list grew significantly, the mill rate actually dropped. So we're starting to go back a little bit closer in terms of what those mill rates were prior to 2007. But effectively, the rate increase that we're looking at is a 0.9 mil. And I wanted to just briefly kind of show what a house assessed in the current year's budget would be assessed for the upcoming budget at the 2784. And so I picked 4 different values: $100,000, $150,000, $200,000, and $300,000 valued homes under the current assessment for 2012. And at that 2388, you can see that a $100,000 home is paying approximately $2,388. A $150,000 home is paying approximately $3,582. A $200,000 home, approximately $4,776, and a $300,000 home, approximately $7,162. Now, this is just the town. This does not include the fire districts in this. So this is only that 2388, which is our tax rate. Now, flip over to next year's budget. Of course, with the revaluation, the average decrease is about 15%. So that $100,000 home assessed in the current year is now all of a sudden assessed for $85,000. And that $150,000 home is assessed now for $127,000. 200 goes down to 170, and 300 goes down to 255. And the thing I want to just emphasize with this is based upon averages. So the average home dropped 15%. An individual home may drop more, or it may not drop as much, or it may actually have appreciated more in value. So looking just at that average, the mill rate, again, that's in this budget is $27.84. And you can actually see, even with that increase of 0.9 mil, a $100,000 valued home is now at $85,000. That same home is actually dropping $22 in taxes. And you can see going down, they dropped 32, 43, and 65. Now, in all disclosure, though, fairness, you know, real estate is only one part of the taxes, or the that which is taxed. You also have personal property, and you have vehicles. Now, the impact on both of those, because those are valued every year, unlike what we do with the real estate. So what you will see is an increase in those taxes for vehicles and personal property. And just comparing the current year's mill rates, again, to put kind of perspective on where we stand. Now, again, this is for the current year. This chart's kind of divided between the top towns being those that, like Enfield, provide a full service of services to their residents, and then everything below the town of Enfield provide less services to a certain degree. Of course, their residents may not think that, but they provide fewer services than what the town of Enfield provides. And what you can see here is, in our comparison with those other towns comparable in services, you know, we're quite well beneath the closest one, which is Windsor, at $28.03. And then comparing to the surrounding and those communities with fewer services, you can see that we actually kind of fall right in the middle of all of it. Lower end, but still in the middle. Now, all this is going to change, obviously, because I do know that East Hartford did adopt a budget. They went through a reevaluation. I think what's their tax rate? 42 plus is East Hartford's new tax rate. And so we're going to see all those communities that, like us, went through reevaluations. This graph's going to look totally different next year when we show this because of that. And then again, I apologize, this isn't the greatest graph, at least on the presentation. But this is what we talked about earlier on the general fund unreserved balance. And when you look at this, you can see that we kind of went up a little bit there in 2008. We started the trend when we started using more of the fund balance to balance off the general fund expenditures. And then the 2012 number at the very end, to the right of that graph, is what I'm projecting. And I'll tell you that there's a lot of discussion whether, you know, that number, which is approximately $9.2 million, if that's the right number, or it could be significantly lower in the sevens. But, you know, we're trying to do things to make sure that, you know, it doesn't fall that far down. But that up there is only at a $9.2, I believe, million ending fund, undesignated fund balance. Again, that would put us beneath the 10%, which is, again, the goal that we try to do, which then keeps our credit rating at the highest level. So when we go out, which we know we're going to be going out in a few years on the Rose 2010, and if the referendum for the high school consolidation, you know, that would be another bonding that we'd be doing. So there's a significant amount of bonding that could cost us, if we lose the current credit rating, millions of dollars over the life of that bond that we don't need to be spending if we do things the right way right now. And with that, that's my presentation. And I'll turn it back over to Mayor Hope.
Thank you, Matt. So this community conversation is structured in a way that there's not a lot of structure. It's intended to be a Q&A session. And since we have a light crowd that's in attendance tonight, you know, just if you've got a question on the budget, We've got a couple staff members here as well from both the town and the school side. Tim Neville, our chairman of the Board of Education, is here in the audience. So if you have a question for Tim on education, I'm sure he'd be more than happy to come up and answer. And you're welcome to join us at the table, Tim, if you'd like to. And besides our town manager, we have Lynn Nenny, our director of finance, Ray Warren, our director of development services, Dan Bendini, our assistant town manager, Carl Sferrazza, our chief of police. I see Joyce Hall. Hi, Joyce. Board of Education member. Joyce, you're free to come up to the table if you would like to do so. And Suzanne Olegnicki, our town clerk. So I can name all of the people in the audience tonight. So Gina or Sue or Sandy, do you have any questions? Any comments? Actually, so if you could, Matt, if you could play Vanna and hand around the mic.
Hello?
Yeah.
Sandy Donellan, 12 Circle Drive. I just care deeply about education, and I want it to be funded as much as possible.
Sue Braun, 17 Light Street. I, too, care about education and would like it funded as much as possible.
Gina Sullivan, 11 Spear Avenue, ditto, ditto. And please look for Enfield Idol coming to Enfield on May 4th, 7 p.m. Tickets go on sale soon. Thank you.
Is it May 4th or May 5th? Yeah. May 4th. Friday night, May 4th. And we also have Chris Chamerka here from the school system, business manager. Is that the correct title? So, any other comments? Joyce? Sure.
Not as a school board member.
Okay, go right ahead.
Last year's budget included several reductions in town staff. This resulted, I believe, in the potential need for contracted out services, the ones that were no longer done by the staff who were no longer with us. What have been the contracted out costs, and how does it compare to the cost of maintaining the laid off staff?
Matt, do you have those numbers off? Yeah, go. Do you have those numbers off the top of your head?
Off the top of my head, no, but I know that it was actually 2 years ago when we did that. The current year's budget is reflective of those staff as well not being there. We're still within what the budget had been laid out for, so it's not over the budget that council adopted.
And just so if folks are watching at home, the positions that were eliminated and contracted staff was used, or in the engineering field, go through the different areas.
The only area that we had significant contracting out is the same area that we always had significant contracting out, which is in the engineering. When you looked at it, we contract out practically everything that we did, only except smaller projects. Now, the current year's budget added staff back, and so we did bring back some of that work that was being done outside by the town staff. So,
It was 2 years ago? Time flies.
yes, it does.
My second question. We've had a very warm winter. Therefore, I assume that the related costs compared to last year for budgets for road care and what have you were low. How does this relate to the cost of Storm Alfred?
Well, the impact on the roadway, so our filling of the potholes and everything, that really, you're not going to see a reduction because of a lesser winter. The holes were there because we had a significant number of days below freezing, which causes a lot of the potholes. You know, from snow removal, we pretty much blew a lot of our snow budget in October.
Okay, and so that the Storm Alfred amounts that were on your budget
Yeah, that
is above and beyond?
Yeah, that is only what is on the cleanup portion of it. So that's the part above what our town staff put forward on the efforts to clean it up. And I know, I want to say that we were about $500,000 in expenditures during the event itself.
And my third question, have you examined the possibility of joining the state's health care program in order to determine whether it would be better or worse than the current program we have in town?
No, we have not. We looked at it 2 years ago, last year. Their increases, two things. One, their increases are significantly higher than what we did when we went self-funded. And second, they don't fund their insurance pool fully. So there is a huge liability that when the bill comes due, whoever's a part of that fund will be paying a part of that as well.
Thank you, Matt. Any other questions, comments? Any questions or comments from the council or the board members here? Joyce, do you have, okay. Anyone else? Any comments from the folks at the table? Yeah, thank you. I like my sweater too. Tim?
I don't want to miss an opportunity to say ditto with the three ladies in the front row here, because we'd like to get some additional educational funds as well. Why miss that opportunity? I think one of the things, just to educate it, and I think Matt did a good job putting the budget out here, is that it registers that we've had 4 years with an even budget and an even mill rate, and it explained that the mill rate we have is not representative of what your taxes are, because even if the mill rate goes out with a decreasing evaluation or devaluation of your house, you're paying less at that point in time. Certainly, I'm not looking to pay more taxes, but I'm very, very concerned that we've had cutbacks for 4 years, and there's a point at which we're losing, and I think we're at that point. We tried to be very judicious with a 1.56 here, and very, very specific in the offerings that we had. We're looking at needs, we're not looking at wants. In fact, we've stopped all wants, okay? And we've actually tried to cut we knew we had a hole in the budget, a $1.3 million hole, and I explained at our hearing that the previous board and council set aside some ARRA funds, I think it's $25,000, to hold that and to take care of that hole so we wouldn't hit the citizens of Enfield with that big an increase. This board took a 654 or 25, Chris? 627, I was close. And we cut back money that had already been allocated to us because we knew that if we didn't do that, we'd have a huge hole. So we've tried to be very judicious in what we put out there. And we're not faring well when you look at comparisons with other districts. And I think you can continue to try to do more with less. And I think our staff has done a wonderful job of trying to do that. And so have the folks who have been doling out the money and dribs and drabs. We have not let people spend things other than on needs. And I think we're at the point now we're doing less with less. And my concern is all of us, everybody at this table wants this town to want to be proud of what we offer this town. And I think we're at a critical juncture. We can't keep doing this with zero budgets, because the zero budget is actually a decrease. We've cut 96 staff in 3 years. We're almost $2,000 below the state average per pupil cost for 5 years in a row. We're 4 out of 5 years we're down in our DERG, which is our economic reference group, as compared to them. Our kids get compared to them in terms of the resources they have to offer. And I think our point is we've got to look at that. We don't want our kids to be shortchanged. None of us do. And we're all trying to find that happy medium between what we can afford to pay and what we're getting for that money. But I think we're at the point where we can't afford not to do something now. And I think this board we had lots of things we wanted to put on the table. We didn't do that. We tried to stick with needs. So, and I know if this was a good economy, people would be sitting here lining up to help us do that. But I think even in this economy, we have to do something, and I think we try to do a modest increase. So we're asking for your support, and we're asking for the public support. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Anyone else? Deputy Mayor Nelson?
I agree. I would fund education every cent we could possibly give them if you could prove to me that it was going to directly go to the children. I do agree we need to do something, especially in these tough times. And the first place we need to go is we need to go to the staff. And we need to ask them to help chip in to get through these tough times, because every household out there is doing the same thing. They're doing more with less. And they just can't go knock on somebody's door and say, give us more money. So for the town to turn around and, you say most houses, went down a little bit. Not all houses, and all businesses didn't. The personal property tax Mass Mutual pays, this increase is huge to them. To all the other businesses throughout town, we've got to keep a balance. And if we don't keep that balance, we're going to lose business. And that's going to shift the tax burden over to the taxpayers, the residents. So we've got to be very careful what we do. So I agree we need to make a change. We have the highest paid teachers, or some of the highest paid teachers in the state, in this town. And I think it's time that we all work together and see if we can't get better for our children with less. I know we can do it. The schools, we're looking at consolidating the high schools. That's a step in the right direction. I think we all have the same goal here, the best for our children. We all have children in the schools. I want to see the best for them also.
Thanks, Ken. Cindy?
I have to disagree respectfully with Mr. Nelson. I do want to support our education and fund what our Board of Education is asking at this time. Again, we've held the line for what, five years now? And we can't continue to not provide the tools necessary for a good educational system, number one. Secondly, as far as our town side, quite honestly, social services, public works, there are needs there that have to be met. And again, the council has not begun our deliberations, but I, for one, am going to seriously look at the budget this year and see where the needs are on both the education side and the town side. And again, I know it's been a rough time for everybody, but we have to move forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Cindy. Sue?
Sue Braun, 17 Light Street. I have to say this. Education has taken a hit every single year. We have had no choice. And somebody up front just complained about the fact that it was the staff. Without staff, you don't have any education. Education, good education, will cut down on your need for more police officers. Good education will keep well-educated people in this community, because when they have families, they will want them well-educated. If they are well-educated, they earn more money. If they earn more money, they build bigger houses. You keep cutting, and I hate to say it, but the education in this town is truly suffering. Put one of your kids in the elementary school this year. Please. Please. Get a young child, adopt one, and put it in the elementary schools. We are cut to the quick. As I stated in the meeting that we were in last year, when was it, Tuesday? My son's in a kindergarten class this year with no aid. I've never had a kindergarten class without an aid before. I don't have one this year. Now I know why we haven't had kindergarten classes without aids. My third grader sits in a class at a 7th grade reading level. He just sits in a 3rd grade class with a 7th grade reading level. He could be brilliant. He will be brilliant, but not in the Enfield public school system unless you switch it around. He will be brilliant in a magnet school, which the Enfield public school system will have to pay for. Why can't we have that education here? I don't understand it. If you cut the staff, you have no education. That's why we're heavy on the staff. Without staff, you don't have teachers. You cannot put them in a room with a television screen and expect them to be educated. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Councilman Kensler.
Thank you, Sue. I agree with part of that. I think that our children are the most important things for this town's future. And as a parent of 4 children, 2 of which have gone most of the way through Enfield schools, and after doing this for a little while, have come to the realization, to my chagrin, that most of the money that we spend on education in this town goes to the salaries and to the benefits of the teachers who teach our children. Now, I think there's no way around that, no matter where you live, but in the town of Enfield, we spend somewhere in the vicinity, Matt, of $43 million on salaries and benefits. 36 million in salaries plus the benefits. 85%? 85% of every one of the Enfield residents' taxpayers' dollars that goes into our town's budget for the schools goes to the people who teach our children. And 15% of the dollars that we all contribute to our children's education goes to our children. And in the past several years, when there's been a cut, it has not been the salaries of the teachers. It has been the education of the children. And I have a real problem with that. We have almost 200 teachers in our town right now that make over $80,000 a year before benefits. One of the highest in the state. Now, if someone has a solution, I'd love to hear it. But I'd like to see more of the money that goes to that budget go to the children. Now, I can't tell the Board of Education once our budget is approved by the town council where to spend their money. We can only tell them how much money you have to spend. Boy, would I love to be able to have some impact in there, but I don't. So that's my message there. We have a problem that is not going to be fixed without everyone coming to the plate. And that's how I feel. That's how the residents I speak to feel. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. I got Councilman Arnone and then Chairman Neville.
Yeah, on the school budget end, it is a service industry. It's heavy with people. That's what it's all about. Hospitals, service industry. Without doctors, without nurses, there'd be no hospitals. The same with our schools. Our teachers, you can just look on the Board of Education state site. You'll see where we sit with our teacher salaries. The teachers hold master's degrees. Master's degrees demand that money in private as well as the public sector. Also, it's negotiated salaries, and we negotiate these salaries with them. So it is a 50-50 thing. I'm kind of tired of the teacher bashing that's been going on in the state now, and I think we got to look back at education and start appreciating our teachers and get back to work. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Chairman Neville?
Thank you. I think I heard most of us, not all of us, say we agree we need to do something for education, but I don't think the way to do it is to go back and say, well, the issue here is salaries, because we've already negotiated that. And along the way over the last 5 years, I think the vast majority of unions came in with zeros, gave concessions, and even the contracts that we had, that we've settled at a very, very low rate here. And I think, if that's a solution, that we need to cut teacher pay, and if that's the issue here, I don't think that's the appropriate issue here. Those are negotiated contracts. That's the place to do it. You folks take part in it along with us, and that's where it comes down to. I think we're also, in terms of the issue of that most of the cost is teacher salaries and benefits and so on, or staff salaries and benefits. It's the same way in every school system in the country. It's a staff-intensive process, and what you want in front of the kids is the best teacher you can get there. Okay, and I think that's what we're trying to do. And we're looking at it in the other way, Kenny. We've cut 96 positions. I think 60-something of those were teachers, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have the exact numbers. Chris, are we close? It's in the 70s, okay? So over 3 years, we've cut those teachers. They don't have pay anymore. We've jacked up class size. We've done an awful lot. I think we've been trying to do our part. There's a point at which we have to do something and produce some money. I understand that. That may be increasing the taxes, but after 5 years, okay, and, people say we can't do it now. I guess the question is, when can we do it? We're losing. These kids are losing. And I don't say that happily. My kids got a wonderful education in this town. It's not the same education that my kids got, okay? And I think these kids deserve that. I know you think so too. How do we do it? Isn't this the year that we try to do something? That's what I'm looking for. Okay, I don't have control of the other issue. And I do not want to jack up class sizes. I do not want to cut programs anymore, because you talked about businesses not leaving town. Parents will leave town. And I think we came to this town because the education was one of the prime considerations for us. And I love this town. That's the only reason I ran for office, is I love it. And that's why you do it too. I know you do. Okay, I know what's in your hearts. But this is the time I think we have to find to do something. Okay, 5 years, we've toughed it out. We haven't sat here and gone crazy on you guys and say, we understand the tough time we're in, but it's time. Don't beat up on the teachers on this one. That isn't the issue. The issue is, we've toughed it out. We've done more with less for 4 years. The 5th year, we've got to have something here. And I think we try to do our part on the 600. And I know you appreciate that, because we've had that conversation. Because we don't want to do that whole. We'll do anything you want to do to try to economize, but we've got to do something. We need those positions. And there's not many of them. So I appreciate it. I know where you guys are, and it's a tough decision, but we've got to find some way to get there.
Thanks, Tim. Cindy?
Thank you, Mayor Copeland. I'm very disturbed by the direction that this conversation is going with respect to education. I don't know, maybe I'm talking to different people than members of my council are, but everyone I know, when I bump into them at Stop and Shop and at the church and at the schools, ask me to please consider putting forward not only the dollars, but the value in education. I take pride in our teachers, in our educators in our town. They do a wonderful job with limited resources. And it disturbs me that we're thinking about their salaries. We don't pay them enough. Quite frankly, these teachers don't make enough money. They're responsible not only for the children, their safety, their education, their welfare, and they're responsible to some degree to help mold them as good citizens and responsible adults. So shame on us if we, a town, cannot come together and realize that there's value in the dollars that we're paying our educators. And bravo to all the teachers that are out there and take these hits. I'm embarrassed for them, but I certainly do support them, and I would never consider taking a dime away from a teacher.
Thank you, Cindy. Deputy Mayor Nelson.
Sue, I never said cut the teachers. I agree. But when we're paying a teacher $80,000 to $100,000 a year, if we could offer that teacher some sort of a retirement program, and I don't know what it is, when that one teacher retires, we could replace them with 2. That's all I'm saying is to look.
Sue Braun, 17 Light Street. It would actually cost us more to offer them a retirement package. That's what Andre Greco's Board of Ed looked into. So we've tried other avenues. What I'm saying is, my kids did the first 4 months of school with no librarian. Oh my God, the best technology on earth ever invented was the printing press. And you guys denied the elementary schools of a librarian for the first 4 months of school? Oh my gosh, I couldn't believe it. No libraries? You gotta be kidding me. I couldn't believe it. That's what the budget cuts did. That's what they did. Now we're dealing with it, and go in and try and sub. I mean, I go in and help out when I can. But when you're dealing with 20 kindergartners and you don't even have somebody that can walk in the room for a moment or take 4 of them to the bathroom, you have a problem. There's been several times when this issue has come up, and it's just It's very tough, and yet you guys are saying cut their salaries. Oh my gosh, they earn every penny. They earn every penny.
All I'm saying is, when we went through school, we didn't have aides in our classroom. We had a teacher who was making $30,000 a year, not 80. That's why we're shifting so much of the money to salaries.
When I went through school,
But it doesn't matter. You've got to justify.
we can go back and forth about this. I was born in 1965. I hit school in 1970. And you know what? I never swore at a teacher. I never stood up in a classroom and told a teacher, I don't want to do this anymore, I'm leaving the room. That happened in my son's kindergarten class. If I had done that in my kindergarten class, yeah, I don't even want to go there because there were still paddles in front of the room. But I'm just telling you, times have changed, and these teachers put up with more than you and I can ever understand. So when we talk, because I often say, well, in my day, oh my gosh, it's nothing, go in and volunteer in a classroom. It's nothing like when we were young. Nothing. And we've got to be around the same age. It's nothing.
I'm a little younger.
I'm only 29.
We're close. And then when it came to the 93 positions that are no longer in the school system, I believe most of them were done through attrition with the merging of the schools and stuff like that, retirement, stuff like. But as far as the actual number of teachers who were laid off,
Some of them were done through attrition, but every time we don't hire that teacher back, that class size goes up. Okay, we lowered our enrollment to a certain extent, but we've cut programs. We've cut Latin. We've cut. We only have 2 languages right now, French and Spanish coming up. That's rare in a high school program right now. We've jacked up class sizes and we've cut sections of things because we didn't rehire that person. Did a person get affected because they retired? No, we didn't have to fire a person for that. But there was an impact on that. And I think, I appreciate your call to what teachers were making. When I started out, I was making $7,500, okay, and that was back in '73. So, the gas was 21 cents too, okay, and ain't that anymore. I wish it was. My heating oil was 19 cents a gallon. So, whole different world. The world's changed. Secondly, when I was in school, when I started teaching, we had 1 special ed teacher at JFK and 1 reading teacher. And we had 1,700 kids, or 1,600 or 1,700 kids at that point. Those are the biggest issues. The laws have changed, as they should have, and I think we're doing a better job with those kids than we were. But the needs have changed. We didn't have technology. The biggest technology was one of those film strip projectors, okay? And that's how our classrooms are designed, with 2 plugs in the room to deal with that, okay? What we did then, what we do now are 2 different things. The types of kids we're dealing with then and that we're dealing with now are different as well, and the needs they have. Actually, we're kind of like the last social agency left. Okay, we've cut a lot of services within the town because we've had to. The state's cut all kinds of services, mental health services, social work services, and so on. The school is the last group that's there, and unfortunately, everybody comes to us because we are there. Okay, and I think what we're trying to do, particularly in this budget, is pay for some of those things: a guidance counselor, social worker, those kinds of things, and address the issues from our unfunded mandates in terms of assessment and so on, and that's with our data person. We're not asking for things that we don't need, and I think salaries have gone up, but the place to deal with the salary issue is in negotiations, and I would agree with you on that. And I think we have
or concessions.
Well, we pushed that, and I guess the issue is you can't tell somebody they have to do something. You know that.
That's why I said go back and talk to them.
I think we can do that. I don't know what the response would be. I can only guess at this point, okay, but I don't know. But the bottom line is, what if that doesn't happen? Okay, then what do we do? We're still at a loss. Kenny,
it's a start. I agree. I agree with you 100%. Something's got to get done.
But I know when I was in union, we gave back a couple of years. We did, and we cut positions and just took the hits. Mm-hmm. There wasn't a complaint from anybody. Every other group did as well. Okay, you're looking at one particular group, okay, and I can tell you, they've got to make their decision. We have to make ours, okay? Mm-hmm. I think the teachers have worked hard. I have not heard complaints about the cuts that we had, the jack-ups in class sizes that we've had. the extra work we've had. They never came and complained to me. They just did it. They knew it was for the kids and so on. I don't think that should be the linchpin on which we base the budget. Okay, because I think we've done our share of cuts, Kenny. You know that.
I agree. But all I'm saying is everybody says, you know, the teachers deserve top pay, which they do. And I will pay a teacher absolute astronomical money if we get the results that show Enfield, we're the highest, we're paying our teachers the highest, and we're also leading the state in education. The stats are out there. It's proven. Just because you pay the staff higher than most towns, you're not getting a better education. So throwing money at the issue, to me, is not the answer. I'm looking for the answer. I agree we have to do something before it's too late. And that's where I'm saying, you know, Enfield, yes, gas isn't 20 cents a gallon anymore, but the scale of pay that for the staff in the school system has grown a lot more than DPW, the police department, the homeowner in Enfield. This isn't West Hartford or Avon where the people are making $300,000 a year. This is Enfield. And all I'm saying is we need to balance it out, because I refuse to lay off police officers or people who work for DPW or social services just so we can fund the school system more. We have to balance it out. And if we increase one, we should increase them all equally across the board. We can't just keep, you know, the DPW and all of them have taken their cuts. The Board of Ed has not. You can sit here and say they took a cut. We can't cut them by the state law because of ECS. And so to say we cut them is wrong. We don't cut them. They have been funded the same. Yes, contractual obligations force them to pay more into the salary account, which leaves less for the rest of the accounts. And, you know, if we fund them what they want, it still doesn't mean they're going to spend it the way you want. So that's why last year there were concerns about budgets, where the money was going, and it really doesn't matter, because once we sign that money over to them, they can do what they want. And you may not get what you want, and the first thing they're going to say is, we didn't give them enough money. So all I'm saying is we've got to come up with a solution, because you can't keep raising taxes every single year. When does it stop? When it hits 100%? But the 10 years before that, it's been raised constantly. The chart was there. So Enfield's finally average with the other communities around. We're still paying great salaries. You can't say we cut them back. So I think we have the bones for a great school system. We just got to work it out. We have a great board. I have confidence in them, and we're going to work together, and we're going to get through this. The school consolidation, the new board is on it 100%, and I'm proud that, you know, and we're crossing party lines here, and both parties are on this, and hopefully it is a start to a great solution to get more than 2 English classes, to get the most up-to-date science labs. That's what Enfield wants. We all want it, and I think we're all striving for the same thing, but we can't bankrupt the taxpayer. They're right there now. We're on the line. You know, I'm self-employed. I know what it's like to struggle every month. I mean, for people who have these town jobs, they get great pensions. You know, those of us who are self-employed, we don't have that to rely on. So we're looking at it from both sides of the aisle. And I'm looking at it from the self-employed person struggling to make his mortgage payments. My taxes, they didn't go down. They went up. They went up quite a bit. I don't understand why, but they did. My truck, newer vehicle, it went up. Personal property for my business went up. So this little tax increase is big. And I'm nothing compared to Mass Mutual, who employs how many people out of this town? If they leave, what is that going to do to the town of Enfield? That's all I'm saying, is we have to look at the whole picture. He is doing exactly what he was elected to do, and he's looking out for the Board of Education. And I commend that 100%. For the kids, I correct it, right. And I commend him, and I will work with him all the way through this, and hopefully we come up with a solution everybody can live with. Thank you.
Yeah. If I could.
Go ahead, Tom.
Well, that's a loud one, huh? I'll have to hold that back. On teacher salaries and test scores, and this is a No Child Left Behind problem too, you know, we're willing to pay if we had our test scores that are up there, but that's a lot more complicated than that. It's not that easy of a way to judge. If you look at Fairfield County, for instance, you'll see they are the highest paid teachers in the state, and they have some of the highest test scores in the state. So that does ring true in some cases, but when you get to areas with higher poverty rates, you end up skewing those numbers. So it's not how much you pay a teacher, is how high the test scores are. It's actually your community. You have to look into your community and see what your community problems are. It's a very complicated, problem, and you can't say I can pay them $1 million and I'll get 100% test scores. It doesn't work like that. Equal pay for a good day's pay is, in their education is what we strive to do, is to be fair with our employers and employees. Thank you.
Councilman Kinsler.
Mr. Chair, I have had my hand up for hours, or at least it feels that way.
Joy, I release the floor to Joyce.
I would like to speak now as board member. I want to correct an impression that Mr. Nelson left. The large number of layoffs, the 96, happened well before we closed 2 schools and is bearing no relation to that event. There were many fewer layoffs as a result of that.
You're welcome. Gina, go ahead, and I know you've been waiting.
I'm not looking to get hurt by anyone. But yeah, if the way I look at it is, if times are tough for everyone, and I'm not bashing a teacher, I love my children's teachers. I think the JFK teachers deserve medals for dealing with that age group, because I have one and I can't deal with him right now. I haven't gotten an increase in 4 years. My husband just got laid off a couple months ago. A lot of people are in this boat where their salaries aren't being increased. Has nothing to do with what a teacher does. I feel like I do a good job for what I do, and I'm sure many people feel that way in the jobs they do every day. I'm taking a hit. I think it should be a global thing until times turn around. I know they're teachers, but it is a job. Like, I do a job, you do a job, most people have to work. And I just feel that maybe for a year or two, until things stable out a little bit, it's only fair that everyone kind of take a hit. That's all. Thank you.
I want to reiterate what I said earlier. I want more money for the kids, and I want our teachers maybe to go to their union like Ford did and said, look, times are bad. We're about to close our company and stop making cars. What can you do for us? What can we go back to the table and talk about so we can get through this together? I'm even willing to say crazy things like, you go get something from the union, bring it back to the table, and maybe I'll talk to you about maybe adding that amount of money back in on top of that savings. Let's work together. But, Gina, you're exactly right. The residents in Enfield are just hanging on. And if I had my way, we would spend, because it's kind of fun to spend. It's good when you do something good and you spend the money and you feel good about the result, but somebody's got to pay for it. And we all have to share. Our other unions in the past have gone and done things and made concessions. I think it's time this union did that. That's all we're asking, okay? I want that 15 cents on the dollar that you're spending that's actually getting to the kids on the programs that we all miss and want. I want that to be 25 cents, 30 cents. That's all.
I'm just going to, normally I don't speak, but just to my colleagues both on my side of the aisle and the loyal opposition, in April, to ask for union concessions is a very hard stretch. In the years past, when we did that and we had willing partners on both sides of the bargaining table, it started very early in the process. This is something that would need to start in January. Even in unnormal times, because they weren't just a couple years ago, so they're abnormal times. But it's I don't want people to have an expectation if they're, I mean, we're sitting around here having a conversation. Folks will be watching this later. To be able to go to a union, whether it be teachers, administrators, or police or public works, and in April, to try to get something in a month, it's not going to happen. So it's an idea. If it's an idea for future budgets, it's something that you talk about in the fall so that you actually have time to action on it, because any negotiation during an existing contract requires two willing partners. And there needs to be an incentive for both sides to actually do that, and to try to jam it into a 1 month period, I think is highly unlikely. Matt may have a comment, Lynn may have a comment. They're, they're professionals in negotiations, or Dr. Gallagher, but we sit here on April 5th. And so we've got 6 weeks to put a budget together. And so do you have a comment on negotiations, Matt, and reopeners to contracts?
When we went to the unions a couple years ago, we were able, I think it was about a 2.5 month process to get the release from the town side. Not sure about the school side. Anything's possible, but I just, it was difficult then, but the other option was a significant layoff. And again, that's your option. If you
Okay. Anyone else? Oh, Sandy. Go ahead. Go ahead, Sandy.
Again, speaking from the heart and speaking as an educator of a lowly private preschool/daycare, which no one here would be able to live on. Unfortunately, my husband has a decent salary. If you get very strident about teacher salaries, it cannot help but create poor morale amongst. Nobody goes out and talks to doctors who also have advanced degrees and say, how much are you making? You shouldn't be making that much. Why is this profession denigrated constantly? Think about, I understand, just get rid of the budget end of it. I have a grandmother who was an elementary school teacher, was a widow for many years, and consequently my father qualified for a full scholarship. That's how low salaries used to be for elementary school teachers, high school teachers. We do not want to go back to the days of, and then, I know, for instance, my husband works for the state. He took furlough days, whatever. I don't remember anybody from the public ever sending him letters thanking him for doing that. Think about the message when you constantly talk about teachers should reduce their salaries. They have too much. They work hard. It's really hard. And as mentioned, a lot of social services have been cut, so teachers are, they're the ones with the kids all day long. It's just sad to me that society doesn't value education. Parents aren't instilling into kids how important education is, how you need to respect your teachers. So.
I clarify. I never used the word teacher. I said staff. And because we're talking principals, administrators, all the way through. If they agree not to take a 2% increase 1 year, that 2% equals $3 million. How many teachers could we, whatever, I'm just throwing a number. How many teachers or assistants could we put back in the classroom with just 1 year, no raise? And then your husband took a furlough day, And you know what his reward was? His job. His fellow employees have their jobs still. I work hard too, and so does the trash man, and so does the police chief and the police officers on the street. We all work hard. So nobody gets more credit than the next person. And we're all doing this together. But the trashmen gave concessions. They said, leave us alone. Don't cut us. And I understand your point, but it's everybody. My point is it's not the teachers. I never used the word teachers. It was staff. Everybody, Gina said it, we all have to give. You know, a lot of the unions gave, and they helped out. So why should they get hit again and get laid off when other unions are saying, no, we're not helping? That's all I'm saying is we all are in this together. Let's fight through it because better times will come.
Scott?
Go ahead, Tim.
You know, nobody's questioning whether people are working hard. And just to clarify, you know, our staff have made a significant difference with the kids. I can tell you at JFK, they got out from under AYP. 2 years in a row, they met the standard and they got off the list. And that was strictly through staff efforts. They just did a commendable job. Average yearly progress. It's a standard you have to meet. They keep upping the ante up till it gets to 100%. So you had to meet a certain level each year. Middle school's the hardest place to make it. They did it. So you had to do it 2 years in a row to do it. Significant job. And they didn't step back and complain. They just did it. And I know you know that, okay? But I think the other thing is, and I know the DPW, I know the cops, everybody does it, they work hard. But there's an entry-level cost to get into teaching, and which is a bachelor's degree, which when I was going to school was $2,000 a year. You can make half of it during the summer. Now you're talking $20,000 or better a year, or $40,000 a year to get into some of the specialties like chemistry and mathematics and physics and so on. There's no sense going into education without having some way to pay back those loans. Or we'll just have somebody else on the dole here. I think that's one difference. It's not making them better, but it's a difference. It's an entry-level cost to walk in, and they have to get a master's degree within, I think it's 10 years, to stay certified. So, I mean, that's just one difference, just to go there. But I also don't think, I think Scott stated it well, if that's an issue, it's not an issue now because there's no time to even talk about that. Okay, we don't have that luxury. Okay, and I think he made an excellent point. We need to fix this in the next 6 weeks. We have to come up with something that's going to deal with these kids. We're falling behind, okay? These kids are at a disadvantage. And this is a good town. These are caring people. It's not that people don't care. They care a lot. But we can't go any longer. I really believe that. And I wouldn't be sitting here saying it. You know, and I'm not trying to denigrate the town. We're just at that point, and we need the help. And this is the year we need it. That's my last comment.
Thank you, Tim.
Tim, I agree with most of what you said, but you said we're falling behind. And 2 minutes before that, you said Kennedy managed to raise their scores, and they're doing a lot better. Right. So we are proceeding forward, and we're actually doing a little bit better. I understand a lot of the programs are suffering, but our education in Enfield as a whole, I don't think is suffering. I think the teachers, the staff, everybody do a great job moving us forward with what we have to work with. So I just... Absolutely.
Joyce.
Another clarification. Every single one of our contracted, unionized employees had at least 1 year with what we refer to as a hard freeze. 0 increase. And that also applied to our non-certified office staff as well, including our superintendent, assistant superintendent, and all the other big wheels in administration. So everyone has done something and cannot be accused of not participating.
Thank you, Joyce. Anyone else? All right. Thank you very much for coming out this evening, having a good spirited discussion. And Matt, the date of the charter public hearing is?
April 25th, 7 p.m. over at Enfield High School.
April 25th, 7 p.m., Enfield High School, which will be a joint public hearing by the council and the Board of Ed. Do we have a motion to adjourn? All those in favor? We are adjourned. Have a good evening. Thank you.